And that, if nothing else, should drive us to create unity, even amidst the profound differences between us. Remembering that that doesn't mean you have to buy the whole ball of wax. It doesn't mean uniformity. So the second of the sort of the four stages, engage, understand, reconcile, act, is really to understand. In the Soul of Atlas, I use 4 questions, and this really starts out, it's in chapter 2. For people who don't understand what Christianity is, or at least what I understood it to be through my dad, I sort of lay out these 4 questions in a dialogue and recreate that so people can get a sense for how the Christian views the world. And the same with John as an objectivist. For people who don't necessarily understand or come later to Ayn Rand's philosophy, I apply the same questions to John, and in the course of dialogue let him respond. Well, the questions are, what is the nature of reality? What is the highest purpose of humanity? What's wrong with the world, and how do you fix it? So just sort of asking these 4 questions to really get a sense for where someone is coming from. It applies to any worldview, but I apply it specifically to Ayn Rand's philosophy and the Christianity from my dad's perspective. And I do so in a way that is really recreating the view of the adherent of these different worldviews. So it's like, it's I think, fair and objective, because it's coming from them. I don't ask all these questions of each father in succession, but I sort of recreate a kind of dialogue that starts there, and I just really wanted to understand each man. Now, I was adversarial, don't get me wrong. I was a teen, and I'm pushing back. In fact, I was always on the other side. If you would have asked John at the time, he would have thought I was a born-again Christian, devout person coming at him and challenging him on every Ayn Randian tenet from the perspective of the Bible. But then if you would have turned around and asked my dad, he would have said, you are a lost soul, and you are totally, without, you just don't have the wisdom to understand these things. And so I just challenged them each and sort of always play the other side, and that's kind of how I roll. The takeaway that I had to understand in each father's worldview, I had to understand before I had any hope of bringing them together in any meaningful way. I had to understand first. I had to be able to articulate their worldview maybe more clearly and more succinctly than they could themselves. And I think they both would probably say that to this day. The thing that I am glad about is that I can do that at least to their satisfaction, and I think that's key because it builds trust. And the analogy of family therapy keeps coming back and back and back. This is like family therapy one-on-one. Even though 101, even though these 2 men didn't sit at the same kitchen table or the same psychiatrist's office or anything like that, that's what you do. You understand. It's like you validate what another person's saying so they feel understood, to build trust. And I think that's key if we're going to then move on to that next step of reconciliation, common ground, finding a place where we embrace the values that we hold mutually. I'm not talking about middle ground. I'm not talking about compromise. I'm talking about overlap. The principles that are deemed valuable by both constituencies. So that to me is what common ground is. And we can't find the common values unless we understand the foundational perspectives of our own worldview and then the others. And we won't be able to understand and build a solid basis for relationship unless we first engage. So it works backwards. Can't reconcile without understanding, can't understand without engagement, and that's sort of where we are. So where is the common ground to be found?